Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Stronger Than Steel podcast, hosted by yours truly, John Keir, and my good friend, Austin Davidson.
Heyo.
It is Season 6, Episode 30 today. Happy Friday to you, Austin. How you doing, my man?
Happy Friday to you as well. I'm doing great. I'm ready to enjoy the weekend.
You get into any of the action on the start of the NHL season?
I did. I watched the Vegas' first game where they narrowly let the Kraken back into it, but they finished off. That's all that matters. Then I watched about a minute of the game versus the Kings, but then I had to sleep. I was tired, so it was a bad game anyway, so I didn't miss out on much.
That was last night?
That was last night, yeah.
Yeah. I saw Seattle won their first game. They're playing something like their first 11 or 6 games on the road or something like that. I guess their arena isn't ready.
Maybe, or they're trying to maybe build up hype or something. Not sure.
I know that the Islanders played their first 13 games on the road because they're trying to get the the center at Belmont ready.
Oh, that's cool. I forgot that was going to be this year.
Never forget, we went... They played at the Barclays Center for 3 years, and we saw a game there.
Yeah, I mean, that was a hell of a game, too. Scored 8 goals.
Yeah,
the Hurricanes 8-4. Did, right?
8-4, the Hurricanes won. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, definitely not a hockey arena. But yeah, that first
Welcome
night
to
of
the
hockey
podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to Stronger Than Golden Knights podcast.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I figured I'd just lighten the mood because the other sport I follow outside of football, one of the main sports I watch is the NHL, and with them returning to ESPN, I thought it was kind of interesting to see the difference in the broadcast. So it was a fun couple days here.
Yeah, thinking about that, I think they did a good job. It was one of the most watched openers ever because it was back on ESPN.
Yeah, now I hadn't been watching hockey when they were last on ESPN, but obviously it's for a lot of people it brings back a lot of nostalgia. So back to the football end of things. Why don't we touch on what happened in Thursday night football last night between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Philadelphia Eagles? Did you get a chance to watch any of that game?
Yeah, those Dirty Birds got a back-end cover that I was really not looking forward to. That was really annoying because the Bucs had control at 28-7 for the longest time, and they just let them come back. It wasn't ever a competitive game. It was never they were going to win it, but it just...
I disagree. Did you see were you asleep on the final drive?
I was. I was asleep by then.
So on the final drive that ended the game, Tampa Bay fields the ball. They have it at their own, I think, 25. The first play of the game, it's a 2-yard run, and then Jannard Avery gets a 15-yard taunting penalty. You might have seen it in the group chat where I was kind of jokingly besmirching it.
I don't remember it. No, I didn't see it. I saw Miles Sanders' 15-yard penalty earlier in the game, not the Jannard Avery one.
He just kind of stands up and... kind of gets in his face just a little bit. Actually, I should point out Fournette initiates contact, and Avery's the one that gets called for the penalty. So
trash.
The Buccaneers were able to use that to keep the drive going. It was only first down, so there's no guarantee the Eagles get a stop on that drive. But especially since the Buccaneers ended the game on that drive. But I don't know if that doesn't happen, maybe the Eagles pull that one out and they get a chance to tie the game. So, more controversy from everyone's favorite rule. Something that I'm sure all of us fans were crying for. We need more taunting penalties because it definitely improves the product. And it affected the outcome of the game, at least partially in this one. So it was only a matter of time.
Hard agree. Gotta love the penalties and the ref ball. It's why I watch football, along with for the punts.
And touchbacks, especially the touchbacks.
Oh, yeah.
So, obviously, the Steelers and Seahawks are playing on Sunday, and they're going to be playing in primetime, the Steelers' first primetime game of the year. And a game that looked like it was going to be pretty difficult to win at the start of the year. This was the additional 17th game played against an additional NFC opponent. It turned out to be the Seahawks. So instead of playing them once every 4 years, the Steelers get another crack at them 2 years after their last game. And it's a task that certainly looks a lot more manageable now that one Russell Wilson is on pace, is on track, in fact, definitely will miss his first game since becoming a starter back in the 2012 season. Kind of incredible to think that he has started 149 consecutive games before this one, which was the 6th longest streak in NFL history. So, bit of sad news in terms of the NFL landscape, but the Steelers, I guess, dodged a bullet in this one, and now they'll get Geno Smith instead, and that's probably the lead story for this one.
Yeah, I mean, Geno Smith starting is quite different from Russell Wilson. Not only are they missing Russell Wilson, they're going to be missing starting running back Chris Carson. As we know, running backs are fungible. It's more about the offensive line that you have in front of you. A bad running back could run behind a good offensive line, and a good running back can't really run much better behind a bad offensive line. And unfortunately for them, they kind of got a bit of both. Alex Collins has looked unimpressive this year, which means unimpressive so far when he's gotten time. Unfortunately, that means he's going to rush for 150 this week, which is why I picked him up in fantasy. But that's neither here nor there. But the main point is they're down Russell Wilson, they're down Chris Carson. Those are starters on their offense. That's really going to nerf them. Their offense is what keeps them in games. So it's a big loss for them.
Yeah, and when we're talking about the Seattle Seahawks, a team that had a lot of success over the last decade, there are several teams I think about, Austin, when I think about parallels for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and all three of them happen to be in the NFC. Those being the Green Bay Packers, New Orleans Saints, and the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know how you feel about that, but I compare them just because of the fact that all three of those teams won Super Bowls and arguably should have won more, despite having a future Hall of Fame quarterback and a talented roster with a good coach. I've seen a lot of similarities with those three teams, and the Seahawks appear to be in kind of a conundrum right now. Not as far ahead as the Steelers and Saints are in their arc, if you will, but they're certainly at a crossroads right now, and without Russell Wilson, this franchise seems to be possibly steering towards an early pick in the first round.
Yeah, it's not looking great, and that's not even good for them. Obviously, that pick is with the Jets, so that's not good. That doesn't help them to finish bad this year. They are a team that is supposed to be competing, and unfortunately, it's just not very good when their offense just can't help. When their offense is this injured, because their defense is not there to be good. I draw the comparison to the 2015 Steelers. They don't have the trio of the quarterback, wide receiver, running back. It's mostly quarterback, wide receiver, but they have a defense that could stop absolutely nothing, and they have an offense that's pretty powered. Not as powered as it used to be, but it's got some really good weapons with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. And that's what's been carrying them. I mean, it used to be... I remember back when I thought Russell Wilson was overrated, and I thought they were carried by a strong run game, and now it's been... Russell Wilson has kind of carried his team ever since, 2012, 2013, so on. So, it's just going to be tough without him.
Absolutely. And talking about the Seattle Seahawks, they've had a bunch of turnover with their defensive backs lately, and as you mentioned, all the injuries on offense, so... I guess, where do you want to start with this one? I guess we might as well, you talked a little bit about the injuries, but why don't we touch on the Steelers' injuries? Only a couple to mention in this one. Carlos Davis did return to practice in a limited fashion, but he has been ruled out, and then obviously, even though he hasn't been placed on IR, Juju Smith-Schuster will not be playing the rest of this season, most likely. I suppose there's technically a possibility he could return if the Steelers played in the Super Bowl, but let's... if that ever comes, we'll have other problems. That'll be a good problem. But it's assumed a season-ending injury. So outside of the guys currently on IR, Carlos Davis is the only player that is out and has a chance to return. So expect him to be back following the bye. And part of the reason the Steelers haven't placed him on injured reserve is because it sounds like the Steelers are planning a corresponding move with either Anthony McFarland or Zach Banner to return from injured reserve for this game. I'd assume it would be Banner since this is the last game he wouldn't have to play, but in theory, either of those guys could wait until their first game being the Browns game 2 weeks from now. But I would assume one of those two players is going to get activated. And we also learned from Brooke Pryor that Anthony McFarland's injury that placed him on injured reserve this year was actually an MCL tear that was a re-aggravation of an old college injury, which to me sounds wild. Does that mean the dude was playing with a partially torn or sprained MCL for like the past couple of years? Like, that's nuts.
Yeah, I don't know if, like, we're undermining that injury or what, because I don't know. Like, it's not even the first case. Like, playing on anything torn just sounds like an awful idea. And it sounds like it's not a good time. However, it's the same injury that Tom Brady had all of last season. And he's just like, yeah, I got it. I won the Super Bowl. I just got surgery afterwards for it. Like, is this not, like, a big deal injury? I don't really understand. I feel like when someone tears an MCL completely, like, you don't recover fast, so why is it, like, when you only partially tear it that it's like, oh, it's not a big deal? I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
It might depend where you tear it, but again, yeah, like you said, we're not doctors. So, with that being the case, another a bit of sad news to report, and that is that Steelers linebackers coach Jerry Olszewski will not be with the team this weekend. He will be mourning the loss of his wife, Raim Olszewski, who sadly passed away this morning. Defensive coordinator Keith Butler will handle his duties until he returns, so our thoughts are with Jerry Olszewski and the Olszewski family during this difficult time. Obviously a big surprise. Didn't even realize what had happened until I got on the computer later this afternoon.
Yeah, it's tough. Just condolences to him, and he definitely deserves to be with his family and everyone mourning at this time. Just my condolences to him and his family.
Mm-hmm. Let's turn the page here. We had mentioned Chris Carson and Russell Wilson. The Seahawks are also going to be without Cedric Ogbuehi. Is that how you say it?
I have no idea. I looked at that as I wrote it. I'm like, I'm going to have to figure out how to say this. I think you did it fine. My guess would have been Ogbuehi. I don't know.
Well, he's a reserve tackle, to sum it up for you. So, all right, well, 2 years ago the Steelers played the Seahawks, and that was infamously the game where Ben Roethlisberger tore up his elbow, his throwing elbow, and ended his 2019 season, and was the first action of the NFL career of Mason Rudolph, who actually played pretty well in that game, if you might remember. 2 touchdowns to Vance McDonald. The Steelers were just 2 points away from a victory, but were unable to get the ball back to Mason Rudolph. That was a fun game in week 2 of the 2019 season, outside of the injury, obviously. And the last 2 times these two teams have played, it's been quite competitive, and obviously they played in Super Bowl 40. So there is some history between these two teams, and as Seattle comes to Pittsburgh to play on Sunday night this week, as we already mentioned, all eyes are going to be on Geno Smith, and I figured that would probably be a good place to start as the Seahawks offense and Steelers defense, because even though Geno Smith is a somewhat well-known commodity, the fact of the matter is, Austin, he's only played in 12 games since the 2014 season, let alone start games. He's only started 2 since then, and he's only thrown 27 passes since the 2017 season, 17 of which came last Thursday. So, I mean, for a former, a second-round pick? A former second-round pick out of West Virginia, thought to be the potential savior of the New York Jets franchise almost a decade ago, he really has not played much over the past 5-6 years.
No, not at all. I mean, he spent time with the Giants and the Chargers, and then settled in with the Seahawks for more than one season. He's been there since 2019, so it's the first time he's gotten to kind of sit somewhere. And yeah, he just doesn't really have that many starts under his belt because of it. I mean, he got his time with the Jets, but once that game to a close was over, he's only started against the Steelers one other time. I actually saw that game. The only other time he started against the Steelers, he was on the Jets in 2013, and I was there. I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that is the first win the Steelers got that season. I went to the 2013 and 2014 Jets games, so sometimes I confuse those. But yeah, no, 2013 was when we started 0-4.
That is correct. Yep.
Yeah,
Emmanuel Sanders had a front flip touchdown in that game.
Yeah, so yeah, that was the last time he started against the Steelers. It's been a very, very long time for him between playing.
Kind of almost a testament to his perseverance to be able to stick around despite not playing all that much. And when he was starting back in his earlier days, he was not very impressive. So The fact that he's continued to stick around, I think, is a good sign for him. But also the fact that he's been in Seattle the last 2 years indicates, he's not playing that much. And, besides that, Phillip Rivers hasn't missed a ton of time throughout his career. And obviously in 2017, Eli Manning was there. So all these backup jobs he's had, they've been under quarterbacks that don't get injured all that much. So it makes you wonder if these teams that had question marks at quarterback weren't looking for him. So I don't know. Maybe that says something about how good of a backup quarterback he is, but I also might be reading into it a little too much.
Yeah, I don't know. He could be just like Josh Johnson, He just goes around the NFL, just kind of sits as a backup, or Clipboard Jesus. I can't think of his name.
Chase Daniel,
Clipboard Jesus, of course. Chase Daniel was
I thought it was AJ Feely first.
AJ Feely? I don't even know that
or
name.
Not AJ Feely. Charlie Whitehurst. My bad.
Charlie Whitehurst. Yes, that was Clipboard Jesus. Yes, he could be like one of those guys. Just kind of gets paid a lot to be a backup, and it's really lit. Honestly, it's probably a cool job to sit as a backup when you're not that good. And just secure the paycheck, sit around, and now Geno says oh no, I actually have to play. My paycheck, they're coming for my paycheck. But yeah, he could be like one of those guys that just kind of goes around the NFL a bunch and just gets to back up people. Who's the Giant now? He's
Mike
not starting. Yeah, Mike Glennon's just vibing too. He almost got a start and he got to play last week because of a concussion. But sheesh, all these guys around just hanging out as backups that aren't very good. It's typically what happens when you're a backup too.
Charlie Whitehurst had a wild career. Just 5 career starts throughout his career. Played 2 games in 2006 and didn't play another one until 2010.
Yeah, man's vibing. Clipboard Jesus.
Why did I think... Because Chase Daniel, I remember, was well known for holding the clipboard
being
as
backup?
well.
Yeah,
backup.
He, I think, is the highest paid quarterback per
start.
Per play time, yeah, per start ever.
5 career starts and has played since 2010.
Yeah, men's is lit. Yeah, both those guys awesome. Chargers, Seahawks, Chargers again, Titans, Colts, Browns for Charlie Whitehurst, and then I forget Chase Daniels' run. He had a bunch of teams as well. I'm pretty sure. I know the Bears, I know the Chargers. Chiefs. Oh my God, he's on the Chargers right now? I didn't know that Chase Daniels was on the Chargers right now. I thought he was on them a while ago. Apparently not. I was confusing that. I can't believe he's still going. I didn't know. I thought he was gone.
So let's circle back to the whole Geno Smith thing here. Had some mixed play during the loss to the Rams last Thursday night. What are you expecting from him? Because I will say that while my expectations for him are low, he was targeting DK Metcalf a lot. And from what I understand, one of the big complaints from the Seattle offense over the last couple of years is that Russell Wilson has not been targeting DK Metcalf as much as maybe he should.
That's an interesting one. I feel like Metcalf gets a good amount of targets. I mean, they're a run-heavy team that it was kind of forced into pass-heavy. Like, you'd expect them to be forced into pass-heavy because of the squad they have, but it's just kind of, they like to be a run team, so they like to get runs in for all 3 backs. I feel like he's been appropriately targeted for how much they pass. I mean, I guess they just want the Seahawks to pass more because the passing league, that makes sense, and you have a good quarterback. And you have 2 good wide receivers. Actually, you have 3 good wide receivers. They have Freddie Swain. I'm sorry. I apologize. But, yeah. I don't know. That's an interesting take. I feel like he gets an appropriate amount of targets. He's a really good player, and Geno Smith targeting DK Metcalf is a smart idea. I think that should be his point of action, because DK Metcalf is really scary and hard to stop because he's athletic and good, and that's a very bad combination for opposing defenses.
Should he be the 13th highest targeted player in the league?
That's where he's at? He's at the 13th highest?
Last year he was. This year he's like 10th.
Oh, yeah, that's perfectly fine. How much more do they want him to get? Do they want him to get every rep? They still have Tyler Lockett there, you know?
Should Tyler Lockett be getting more? Because Lockett has gotten more each of the last 3 seasons.
I mean...
I think that's debatable. The only thing what's funny is even though they're completely different body types, they do play pretty similarly. Metcalf can just play more like Calvin Johnson though.
Yeah. Metcalf with the ball in his hands after the catch is more dangerous than Lockett.
Or without it. As we saw in defense on that pick.
Yeah. They both have that speed, but like Metcalf, it's like he has that speed and then he could run over someone. Lockett's not going to run over someone. Lockett's going to get tackled if it comes down to it. He has the breakaway speed, so that just like Metcalf, where he won't have to get tackled most of the time, but Metcalf is just a big body, so that's extra scary. So maybe, yeah, I guess Metcalf probably deserves more targets, but I feel like a big reason for that is who is cornerback one typically going on when they're versing the Seahawks? Are they just not moving their cornerbacks around and just having an equal distribution, or are people more focused on Metcalf? I feel like more people are focused on Metcalf because he's scary. I'd be interested to look at that. Who gets cornerback one more often? Who gets like cornerback two?
Now, in terms of the Steelers' defense, they've been pretty good at taking away the number one weapon this year for opposing defenses or offenses for the most part. I'm assuming it's going to be one of those two guys, obviously. You would think it would be DK Metcalf, but I don't know. Do you think Tyler Lockett gets more attention this week?
I don't know. I feel like the one, they're both fast. That's what's unfortunate. If one was fast, I would say we need to cover the fast one because that's the one that's been beating us, whether it be Ruggs, Jamar Chase, or
Randall Cobb.
Randall Cobb,
Not really, but
extraordinaire.
That was a little different. Stephon Diggs nearly hit a home run on the Steelers in week 1 too. So
yeah. I think you gotta try and do your best to. I don't think you focus on anyone. I think you do your best on just covering the field and making Geno Smith make a good decision here. Because I like DK Metcalf. I like Tyler Lockett, but last time we versed, Steven Nelson handled Metcalf. I thought we don't have Steven Nelson anymore, which is sad. But I saw Metcalf get handled. I know that he could be shut down with just one guy sometimes. And Nelson wasn't even our number one corner. Problem is Joe Hayden's a little bit slower. But still. So I think that you just gotta. I don't think this. Every other game they've been focused on taking one thing away, and they've done a good job at that. And last game it helped them out. Fant did nothing. They wanted to take away Fant. Fant did nothing, and they couldn't win the game. Hadn't worked the other 2 weeks, but it worked there. I think that you don't focus on anything and just play your coverage. Just don't try taking away anything in particular. Make Geno Smith read it because he's not particularly good at it.
In the last game the Steelers and Seahawks played, DK Metcalf caught a 28-yard touchdown pass. That was the game-winning score, by the way.
That's true, but for the most of the game, Steven Nelson had him handled.
Do you remember who was in coverage on him? Because it actually wasn't Nelson. I do remember who was, though.
Why do I feel like it's Tyrell Edmonds?
That's because it was Tyrell Edmonds.
Yeah, it's freaking Tyrell Edmonds. Of course it was Tyrell Edmonds.
Because why put a cornerback on him when you can put an overmatched strong safety on DK Metcalf?
But he's athletic, just like Metcalf. It'll work.
DK Metcalf makes Tyrell Edmonds look like me.
It's true, though. Yeah, that's scary.
He is still a good athlete, but, I mean, still.
Not Metcalf.
So you're just going to play straight up in this one? You're not trying to focus too much on one of these guys? I mean, realistically, who concerns you more if you had to pick one?
Metcalf.
They have been throwing to him a lot shorter this year so far. I do wonder if they're, knowing their situation, if they're not going to try to throw the ball a little bit deeper in this game. I'd imagine that we're going to see a good amount of deep shots from this team. The key is obviously to be able to get pressure on Geno Smith, who is definitely not as good at escaping pressure as Russell Wilson. So I think the key is to, again, not keep a lid on things and get pressure on the quarterback, because the Seahawks completely rebuilt their offensive line for the most part. They still have Dwayne Brown, but they picked up a guy like Gabe Jackson, and they have Damian Lewis at the guards. Those guys aren't really road graders like the Seahawks offensive line typically has been. They're trying to rebuild their offensive line as more of a more of a pass blocking offensive line rather than a run blocking one. And I don't know. You can make an argument as to whether or not it's been successful so far this year. I don't think it necessarily has been, but they haven't held up very well, and I'm not worried about their run game, especially without Chris Carson. I know Alex Collins did a lot of damage to the Steelers in the playoffs a few years ago, but that was also 7 years ago, so I can't say I'm super concerned about it.
Yeah, it's quite the long time, you know?
I thought he was retired. I was shocked to see he was still playing.
Yeah, honestly, when he got another shot, I was like, oh, this will be a guy that doesn't last long, and he lasted long, and he worked himself up the depth chart, so good for him. I mean, he worked himself up to the number 2. The Seahawks made several mistakes when drafting running backs, so it wasn't quite hard. I mean, DJ Dallas doesn't look good, and Rashad Penny hasn't been healthy long enough, but hasn't looked good when I've seen him, so... yeah, Alex Collins is able to catch on with Seattle.
Wait a minute. Was I confusing Alex Collins with somebody else? Who was the Ravens running back in that playoff game?
Should have been... unless it was...
It wasn't Collins, because Collins was later than that. Collins was playing there in 2016-17, I think. 2017-18.
Is this Buck Allen?
He played?
Is it Buck Allen?
Oh, my goodness. Man, a lot of decent running backs played there that aren't there anymore.
Yeah,
I'm looking back at 2014 final roster. There's Justin Forsett. That was the guy I was thinking about, Justin Forsett. Hasn't played in a while. Kyle Juszczyk, Bernard Pierce, and one Fitzgerald Toussaint.
Fitzgerald Toussaint, the man, the myth, the legend.
I love Toussaint. Who was that other? Oh, Javorius Allen. That was Buck Allen. That's right. I forgot about these guys. There's a lot of decent running backs that have played for Baltimore that never lasted anywhere else. Can they always just run the ball?
Apparently. I mean, they always had like a decent running back with them that played well in their system. I guess their system was always just built around having a good running back or making your running back look good.
I'm down the rabbit hole now looking at Isaiah Crowell and Terrence West.
Oh, man, Terrence West.
Help me.
Now that's a name. I tried trading him after he had negative points in fantasy one year, and no one bit.
I'm in trouble now. Help me, Austin. Get me back on track here. We were talking about DK Metcalf, and now it's Alex Collins. Oh, yeah, Collins. So he's still playing now. Obviously far removed from the 900-yard season he had back in 2017. Still an effective runner, but I wouldn't say he's any threat in the receiving game. Never caught more than 23 passes in a season. So you'd have to imagine that some combination of Collins, DJ Dallas, and Travis Homer will do the heavy lifting in the ground game because their former first-round pick, Rashad Penny, is injured too. So really Collins is running back 3. And with the rebuilt offensive line, I wouldn't have confidence that they're going to be able to run the ball. And I think the Steelers, coming off a good performance against the Broncos, should be able to continue to stop the run.
Yeah, I'm hoping for good things. I mean, on paper, it's looking like the Steelers should be able to handle this at least in a decently. Alex Collins, again, hasn't looked particularly crazy good in his time starting. Honestly, Travis Homer is the one that worries me a little bit more. He's the pass-catching back now, I think, because he's always had solid hands, and I feel like whenever he came in the short reps he did, he was a much better pass catcher. So I guess that'd be the one that I'd be most worried about. I'm not really worried about Alex Collins on the ground. Again, though, that means that he's going to rush for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
So, obviously, the outside receivers of Lockett and DK Metcalf are a big concern. You imagine the Seahawks are going to be using a lot of play action in this one, trying to force some DPI calls, get some home run plays. Outside of that, they have a rather unimpressive tight end room, but they do have numbers in the tight end room, and guys like Gerald Everett, who just came off the COVID list, Will Dissly, Colby Parkinson, among others. And, of course, they have your favorite receiver, Freddie Swain, who has had a nice third season in the NFL. And they only have 4 wide receivers, the fourth one being Penny Hart. I wonder if they'll activate another one or if they aren't going to bother. I mean, they're obviously going to have to bring up another quarterback, and I'll check who that quarterback is going to be. Jake Luton, the Steelers' foe from the Jaguars game last year. So he
don't
will
they
be
have
the backup.
Don't they have Danny Etling too? I think.
They have Mike Jackson. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh yeah, they have
yes,
two
they
quarterbacks.
They do have Danny.
I think you're right though. I think that it's still going to be Jake Luton. I think he's the next man up.
Yeah, he does have 3 starts in his career, all of which coming last year. So, let's circle back now to the receivers for the Seahawks. Yeah, I mean their offense basically runs through those 2 receivers, and the rest of their offense they get from some combination of the tight ends Everett, Disley, and Freddie Swain. That's pretty much how they're going to be having to move the ball. You know, it really feels like there just aren't a lot of weapons on this team outside of those top 2 guys.
No, really not. I'm a big fan of Tyrell Everett, and I like Will Disley as well, but still, like, not that much. Not enough here for me to really like this offense in this game without Russell Wilson. Like, they're just not. They're talented up front, but they're not talented enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you can with this defensive front, you should be able to beat them pretty consistently. And the tight end room they have is similar to the Steelers receiver room, at least what it was at the start of the year, with maybe not a number 1 definitive guy, but a bunch of good pieces behind, whatever the number 1 would be. So, I mean, Colby Parkinson's a good number 3 to have. So, there's pieces here, but they do feel really top-heavy. And, again, only 4 wide receivers, which in 2021 feels like insane. But, obviously, the Seahawks, like you said, Pete Carroll's more of a conservative-style head coach. They like to run less 11 personnel. You'll see a lot of 2 tight end sets with those 2 receivers. And, they don't necessarily run it as much as they used to, at least with Russell Wilson. But they do like to use play action, so I'd be a little concerned about that. I don't know. I think if you're the Seahawks, I think you're trying to run the ball and use play action to try to get deep, because I think that's the only way you can establish legitimate offense in this one.
What happened to Philip Dorsett? Is he still hanging around with them?
He's on the practice squad. He reverted back, so he might be called up. I'm not sure if he's out of elevations or not.
Yeah, I wonder what they've been doing, because I knew when they started the season they had like 7 running backs and the 4 wide receivers. Very interesting that they like to live that way. I feel like they should use more wide receivers. Like everyone, I know we talked about the more targets for DK Metcalf, but only having 4 wide receivers and calling up one from the practice squad for your 5th, that's kind of tough. I don't know how I feel about that.
Again, they don't really use more than 3 receivers at any one time usually, Yeah. And for that matter, neither do most teams. Usually, it's just that the Seahawks don't run a lot of 11 personnel, in comparison to the rest of the league.
Interesting. Yeah, I still feel weird about that, because like, what if there's an injury? Like, I feel like that would really. I mean, they've already had 2 wide receiver injuries. They had like 2 young guys get hurt in Ursa and I forget the other one now, but Eskridge. Yeah, he was just drafted this year. So I don't know. They are pretty top heavy, the Seahawks. I mean, you got some pretty solid guys in Everett, Metcalf, and Lockett, but other than that, there's not much scary on the offense. Dwayne Brown is still good at a left tackle.
But he is aging too, and he's certainly not peak Dwayne Brown. I believe he's 35 now. 36. He's 36 years old. Man, what a career he's had. Started all the way back with the Texans in 2008.
Yeah. Long time, man. Long time.
He's approaching 200 career games. But yeah, he's clearly their best offensive lineman. But I think he's going to have his hands full with the combination of Melvin Ingram and Alex Highsmith. And everywhere else, I know Gabe Jackson's a good pass protector, but nothing about this offensive line stands out to me and says this is something that the Steelers can't overcome. I think you can blitz in this one. I wouldn't go crazy. My big concern defensively is getting beat over the top. I do think the Steelers pass rush should continue to improve on a solid, not great, but a solid performance last week as the big pass rushers continue to get healthy.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that you just take it easy. I don't think there's anything particular you have to do in this game. Like I said, you just don't really focus on anyone. You just kind of drop back into coverage, let let the pass rush do its thing, see if they could hit home, and then if they're not doing a good job, then you could send blitzers. But I think that this isn't going to be a game that requires blitzing. I feel like this is going to be a game you could drop back into coverage and make Geno Smith find the right guy.
This is a team that had only turned the ball over 2 times prior to Geno Smith coming in this season and had put up pretty good offensive numbers most of the season so far. Obviously Geno Smith changes everything, and, who knows, maybe he plays a lot better than we think. It's just hard to tell because he hasn't played much at all over the last few years. But
yeah, who knows? Maybe going to all these teams, it's been like picking up Infinity Stones. He learned a little from Eli Manning. I hope not a lot. Learned a little from Phillip Rivers. Sat behind Russell Wilson for a while. Maybe he's come out a better quarterback on the other side after learning behind these guys. These are all guys that might be in the Hall of Fame, so
and
might have done something.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, too.
Yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick, yeah. He is helpful.
Yep. So, what are legitimate kind of goals for this defense in terms of, points allowed, explosive plays, turnovers, sacks, all that good stuff? I keep thinking about this. I really do feel like for this defense, anything more than 20 points is a concern. I think that the offense the Steelers faced last week against the Broncos is going to be more potent than this one, but those big plays could really make a difference. So again, like I said, explosive plays are my big concern, especially in the passing game. Look out for play action. I think if you can keep the Seahawks to under, a cap of 3 explosive plays, maybe 4, you should be in decent shape. Really like it to be 3. And I think you can turn the ball over on the Seahawks team. I think you should be able to get 2. And sacks are an overrated stat, but I don't see why with his lack of mobility you shouldn't be able to get to Geno 3 different times. In an ideal world, this pass rush should be able to set up with a lead at some point in this game and should be able to get pressure. But again, those receivers are the wild card.
Yeah, the realistic goal for me for this game, I would like to see 17 points or less. It's kind of a tough goal in today's NFL, but 17 points I think I could be happy with. A little bit over to 20 isn't bad at all. Once you get to 23, it's you're like, well, how did you kind of let this happen? Any more than that would be a little bit too much for me against the Geno Smith team, against a guy that hasn't started in a while. Regardless of if he plays good or not, he hasn't started in a while and hasn't had that game experience. So I wouldn't be too happy with much more than that. But that's the number for the points allowed. I will stress it every week until I die. To me, 2 of the most important stats are winning the penalty battle and winning the turnover battle. As if the Steelers defense could be more opportunistic, which they haven't so far this year. Their identity the past 2 years have been an opportunistic defense. They've given up chunk plays, and then they'd make up for it by getting picks. Not really that much this year. They've been a little bit more in between. I think that their coverage is honestly better. We're just not seeing the opportunistic plays, which is making them look worse because they're not able to turn over the ball. Turnovers are probably the most important. They're explosive, and they give the offense life. So I'm looking for them to win the turnover battle. I don't really care if it's 1, 2, 3, 5. I guess it's partially on the offense to contribute here as well, but I just want them to have more turnovers than the opposing defense.
When you're looking at the Seahawks offense, they have scored 17 points twice this season, including last Thursday night. So it shouldn't be unheard of for this defense to perform similarly, getting healthier. I think that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, no, it's not a super hard task. It's not easy to do it week by week to keep teams under 20 points every week, but in this case scenario, I think it should be a little bit easier.
All right. On the other side of the ball, this Seattle Seahawks defense is on pace to yield the most yardage in NFL history, which granted is a little bit easier in a 17-game season, but so far the Seahawks have given up 336 yards, 532, 453, 457, and 476 total yards in the 5 games they played, meaning week 1 at 336 is the best mark they've had this entire season. Teams have been able to move the ball at will against this Seattle Seahawks team, and they haven't always scored a ton of points, but this team is just hemorrhaging yards. And at 2-3, for a team with stars like Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams, among other good players like Poona Ford, this is massively disappointing for this defense, which still plays a lot of that cover 3 style defense that Legion of Boom played, but I mean the talent on this defense is just outside of the stars is bad, but even with the stars, you'd think that they should be able to produce more than they have. And then they also have disappointments like Carlos Dunlap, who was their best pass rushing defensive lineman last year, is now considered a backup. Former first-round pick LJ Collier is a third-string player. And, they've been going through all bunch of different cornerbacks. I mean, my goodness, they just released Trey Flowers. And, of course, the Steelers traded for Akella Witherspoon, who was supposed to be one of their starting cornerbacks this year, and he can't even see the field with the Steelers. So, I mean, my goodness, the Seahawks defense is, well, it derives many many certain descriptions. How about we'll put it that way?
Yeah, I mean, there might not be a worse team at drafting players than the Seahawks. They've just had a really, really tough time with that. I mean, you look at like some of their recent high picks, like Ugo Amadi, Marquise Blair, LJ Collier. Then you have other guys like Jordan Brooks is starting, so he's actually solid. But like they just haven't been a good team at drafting. I mean, you look at them; they drafted DJ Dallas, Rashad Penny, both pretty high picks. DJ Dallas not so much, but guys that aren't very good. They haven't done a good job with their drafts, and it's kind of put them in a bad position. And then as for they didn't really fix much on their depth chart coming into this year. I think they tried fixing their defense a tiny bit, but they didn't really end up adding anything. I think they were hoping for more out of Darrell Taylor. There's a guy that I liked pre-draft, but he's just been injured. He's never gotten to see the field. Another mistake, I guess. He was someone I was really high on. I just didn't expect him to have all these injuries. But so he hasn't gotten to play either. I mean, their front seven just isn't very scary other than Bobby Wagner. It's just avoid Bobby Wagner, and everything else is like, who are you to be afraid of? Rasheem Green, Kerry Hyder, Poona Ford is I guess. Al Wood's still vibing. Benson Mayowa, not guys that I'm super high on. I honestly, the only one that I'm high on is Sidney Jones, who's another pre-draft guy that I really liked that I thought came along well with Jacksonville, but I don't even really know how he's played with Seahawks. I assume not very good because the entire defense hasn't been good. They just picked up Bless Austin, who was someone I wanted the Steelers to go after. Instead, they chose to go for Akilla Witherspoon, and the Seahawks traded him and then decided to pursue Bless Austin. But other than that, it's just they got 2 stars, and one is underperforming. Bobby Wagner is good. He's doing fine, always has been. Jamal Adams just sucks. Like, just straight up just sucks. He's not doing what he is good at. It's kind of like the Lamar Jackson conundrum. We were talking about this earlier, and we were talking about Jalen Hurts, though. Jamal Adams right now is Jalen Hurts. He does one thing solid, but he can't do something completely, like he's completely bad. So Jamal Adams can't cover, and he plays really well at the line, like as a blitzer and stuff, and he's not doing that really well right now. And the comparison was Jalen Hurts is like Jalen Hurts is a really good runner, but he's not throwing anywhere close to as good as like someone say like Lamar Jackson, who's an elite runner. So Jamal Adams is having a real tough time on defense. Like he's just not doing what he excels at.
Yeah, so the Seahawks they were the worst team in the league last year generating pressure. Their answer for that was acquiring an aging Carlos Dunlap, who immediately became their best pass rusher on the defensive line. And Jamal Adams is honestly the best blitzing safety in the NFL. And saying that, meaning that the Seahawks blitzed him, like, I want to say like almost 10 times a game last year. They had to do that because they could not generate pressure otherwise. They couldn't do it. And, granted, he was very effective at it. He set a a league record for the most sacks by a defensive back in a single season at 9.5. I mean, he was really good. This year, the Seahawks are only blitzing him, I want to say, like 3 times a game, something like that. And he hasn't gotten home yet. 0 sacks right now. And on top of that, when he's not blitzing, teams are going after him, and he is getting just crushed by opposing receivers, running backs, tight ends, you name it. He is not holding up well in coverage at all. And, you know, it's great to be good at what he's good at, and he's, you know, arguably the best defensive back when it comes to blitzing. But this shift in role, the rest of the team around him isn't good enough to cover up for this. And he is just getting absolutely taken advantage of right now. And it's wild to think about with this team because, yes, they traded Akello Witherspoon. They released Pierre Desir. They just released Trey Flowers. They had Aldon Smith, remember that, in the preseason?
Yeah, I did. He was actually solid with the Cowboys. Surprised they didn't hold on.
But, like, a bunch of different cornerbacks that they've tried and just haven't worked. Remember, they lost both their starting cornerbacks from last year, and Shaquille Griffin, and I forget who the other one is.
I'm trying to think. I knew Shaq. I don't remember who their other one would have been.
Let me find that out for you.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about this defense and kind of what you think the Steelers' offense is in for, what they should do?
So this might be the easiest game for the offense possible. So it'd kind of be disappointing if the offense scored less than 17 in this game. It's not a very high mark. They scored 27 against a much better defense without help of a turnover last week, but I don't have belief in their consistency yet, personally, so that's how I view it. So I think a realistic goal is to score at least 17, but I really want 20. 20 is what I'm looking for specifically, because the defense should be able to keep the Seahawks under 20. So 20 is the golden number. 17, I'm going to be disappointed but not surprised. So that's like kind of like the baseline. And then, I'm hoping for a huge game, though. Paper says that this should be the best game that the Steelers have on offense all year, at least so far. I mean, again, it's a very talent-depleted roster. There's not a lot going on there, so that's tough. But personally, I really still have low expectations. That Broncos game didn't really move the needle for me. I'll say that the golden number for them is 20, and I'm just hoping for no turnovers. No turnovers would be a great thing. It doesn't happen very often with the Steelers. I mean, we went a very long time last year waiting for them to have a game where they didn't turn over the ball once. They've now done it again this year, which is good, but it'd be nice to get that again. It really helps the defense out when they're not in a short field. So.
Yeah, the Week 1 game against Buffalo, no turnovers.
Yeah, and that was good enough. It allowed the Steelers to win against a team that is now considered the best team in the NFL.
This is the best team. Faux show. The other cornerback was Quentin Dunbar, by the way, who bounced around the league. So
I think he went to the Lions or something.
He went there to the Cardinals and now with the Packers since then.
Oh, I didn't even know he was with the Packers. I kind of remember the Cardinals, but not the Packers.
Mm-hmm. Where did Shaquille Griffin end up? Jacksonville. That's right. Him and Sidney Jones basically swapped. Yeah, I love Sidney Jones, but he's clearly not had the NFL career I thought he was going to, and I think injuries have been a big part of that. But with him and DJ Reed starting on either side and with Jamal Adams being a liability in coverage, go after those guys when they're in coverage. I think Quandre Diggs is the only good coverage player that they have. So, I mean, if he's on an island, single high, that's fine.
You know who I think might have a good game this week and down the middle? I'm thinking Pat Freiermuth might be able to do a good job down the middle in this game. Like, I feel like we might get more than one completion 15 yards over the middle to him. I have it in my bones.
Well, the Seahawks do still play a lot of cover 3, which means single high, so I don't know that means the middle of the field is the way to go in this one.
It might not, but I'm still feeling like Pat Freiermuth doing stuff in the middle. I have a funny feeling.
I think if you get double high in this one, I'm running the ball all day. I know Poona Ford and Al Woods are pretty solid defensive linemen, and Bobby Wagner is maybe still the best linebacker in the NFL. But does Jordan Brooks, Benson Mayowa, Rasheem Green, do those guys scare you at all? I mean, Carlos Dunlap is okay. Look, teams have been able to move the ball however they wanted. You said a couple weeks ago the Vikings moved the ball however they wanted. This team, the Steelers team, is still a running football team at its core. Its identity is to run the football, and I think we continue to see that. But I also think that we're going to see a fair amount of testing of these young defensive backs, and I think that Deontay Johnson could have quite a big game in this one. And if not, Chase Claypool in the slot, I think it could be a big game for him. Thinking about him on Jamal Adams, which is basically like a linebacker on Chase Claypool again, is it's a good thought to have. My main concern, though, is Jamal Adams as a blitzer, because this is still a young offensive line. It's finally starting to put together better games, but they haven't faced a blitzing player like that besides Mike Hilton. And do you remember Mike Hilton blitzing all that often in that game?
Not particularly. I have a really bad memory, though.
When he did, though, the Bengals were getting pressure all the time, partially because of game flow. I feel better about the Steelers in this situation, but Jamal Adams blitzing, even though he hasn't had a good year, does concern me.
Yeah, I mean, he could start at this game. I mean, the Steelers' offensive line played well last week, but they could go right back to form and underperform against a really bad defensive line. So, and then Jamal Adams could join in and make it harder for them for blitz pickup and stuff. So I could see it.
I'd be trying to blitz him as much as possible if I'm the Seattle Seahawks. Try to get him to disrupt things. Ben Roethlisberger is not a mobile quarterback at this point in his career. So I'm trying to hit pop plays behind him. I'm trying to take it whenever he's in coverage. I'm trying to throw at him or one of the corners. And outside of that, I'm okay with getting one of our athletic linemen on him, but I don't know if you want to get him in space, because that's one of the things he does excel at.
Yeah. Honestly, Jamal Adams is probably a liability in coverage, so it's probably best for them to blitz him as much as possible, because he's just if he could be taken advantage of in coverage. And like you said, I mean, he doesn't match up well with any of the Steelers wide receivers. Even without Juju, it's just tough for him to match up with Chase Claypool and how big he is and how fast he is, and then also match up with Deontay Johnson with how good his route running is, and his little bit of speed as well. So target Jamal Adams if he's in coverage.
If he's blitzing on pretty clear passing downs, I want the Steelers to run screens behind him.
I think that's a good idea.
Outside of that, how concerned are you about Bobby Wagner? He is a great player, so I mean, going over the middle does concern me a bit. Najee Harris, as far as him running the ball, I think he should have a pretty solid showing in this game, similar to last week. I am concerned about him in pass pro. I'll be clear about that.
Yeah. As a whole, Bobby Wagner has had a great career. I think that he's still a really good linebacker and one of the top ones, but by himself, there's so many other places to target that I'm not really worried about him. I'm sure he'll make his impact because the Steelers are going to run a bunch on them, and he's obviously down the middle. He's been one of their guys, both good in run stopping and in coverage, but I just don't think he's going to be able to do enough. Like I expect him to get his tackles, I expect him to do well in coverage, but the Steelers have so many other places they could go. I just don't expect him to make enough of an impact to change the game.
This might be a game where the quick game actually works. I expect the Seahawks to blitz a lot in this one, and Wagner's a guy that they had to blitz a lot last year too because they just weren't getting pressure. I think this is a game where you're going to try to get the ball to your guys in space, and I actually think this sets up well for the short passing game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does set up the short passing game as well.
Ben just needs to hit his throws, and obviously he's had issues this year, whether clean or under pressure, but last week was a start to getting back to, more acceptable levels. I do think that the Steelers, even down Juju, should be able to move the ball pretty much at will. Now, I mean that in the scope of this team, moving it at will for their standards. So I don't know. I'm wrestling. I do actually think the Steelers could possibly cross the 30-point plateau in this one. A lot of it's going to depend on the defense, getting them the ball on turnovers. They put up 27 points last week with only a turnover on the final, one of the final plays of the game. I don't think it's unreasonable that they put up more points against a worse defense.
Yeah, it's just I feel like looking at this, like each team is looking at each other like, well, we're bad here, and so we're going to excel. So like it could be flipped the other way. Well, the Seahawks aren't going to face probably a worse offense, so it's not unreasonable to think that they can hold this offense. So kind of goes both ways. I am expecting more for the Steelers, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't do it.
It's true, but generally offense is the driving force in the league today.
This is true. It's a
my
passing
argument
league.
to that. If you can't move the ball against this team, there's big concerns.
Yeah.
Well, reaffirming big concerns. And then
yeah.
All right, well let's be real about this game then. With Russell Wilson, this probably would be a game that the Steelers would be, field goal or slightly more underdogs in at home. Without him, it's not a must-win game because it's out of conference, but you're looking at the rest of the schedule and how things stack up for this team. To get to a point where they could at least compete for the playoffs, they had better win this game.
Yeah, I wish I had that percentage chart. Like, there's like a percentage chart of how often like teams at every record make the playoffs. The jump down if you lose this game is pretty big. I'm pretty sure the Steelers sit at about 42% at 2-3. If they go to 2-4, I'm pretty sure it drops down to about 26 or something like that. I don't have the chart in front of me, so that but it's something like that. So and winning doesn't move the needle as much. I think it goes from 42 to 51. Steelers need these wins. At least the percentages say so.
The 3 of their next 4 games, including this one, are very, very winnable. They host Chicago and Detroit in weeks 9 and 10. Obviously, they have the bye week next week, and then they're at Cleveland. Who knows? Probably not a win, but the Steelers have won in Cleveland a lot over the years. But winning this game will put you in a really good spot because 2-4, you undo almost all the good work that you did last week to beat the Broncos.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it would really mess that up. I mean, it would suck to win a game like that against a harder defense and then come in and poop the bed for this one. I just want to say I was wrong. At 2-3, the Steelers currently have a 30% chance to make the playoffs. If they win, they go to 42%. If they lose, they go to 21%. And in terms of history of the league of when teams had that same record, how they finished. So I think I was looking at 3-3 because when they're at 3-3, as I said, 42% chance, and that goes up to 54. And if otherwise, you fall back down to 30, which is a farther drop. But yeah, I was slightly off on that.
Can't lose to Geno Smith at home is basically as easy as I can sum it up.
Don't lose to Geno Smith at home. Please halt the circle of sadness. Thank you.
All right. Would you like to get into picks? We forgot special teams. Did you want to add anything regarding special teams?
I'm pretty sure you said it on last podcast. I don't know why you would have, but Michael Dixon, the best punter in the league.
Yes, sir. It's because he's on one of my fantasy teams, and he's one of the players I looked at. I want to say 4 years. My goodness, he's been in the league that long already. I looked at him, so I guess 4 years ago now, and he was the MVP of a bowl game his senior year, and he didn't have an outrageous average per punt in that game, but it's because of his 8 punts, 7 of them were downed inside the 10 or something like that. So the guy's good. Let me put it that way. He's had 28, 34, and 32 punts down to inside the 20 over his career, not including this year. So he's good. He can boot it far. He can place it deep. He's one of the best in the league. And obviously, Jason Myers, even though he's not one of the best kickers in the league, he has played in a Pro Bowl, so he's not a scrub either.
Yeah. So far, not great for him. He's only attempted 5 field goals. Not a lot so far this year, but he's missed 2 of them too.
He was perfect last year. I didn't even realize that.
Really? He was
24
perfect?
of 24.
Wow.
Well, on field goals, he ironically missed 4 PATs.
Yeah.
That has to be the first time a PAT percentage has been lower than a field goal percentage. I can't ever imagine that being the case. Well, yeah, I don't know. But anyways, yeah, their specialists are good. Freddie Swain is their main punt returner, and DJ Dallas is their kick returner.
Yeah, so as a whole, they're all right. So far, Myers hasn't had a great run. He missed a 30 to 39 yard field goal. I forget what exactly it was. Then he missed one in the range of 40 plus yards. He actually hit his only 50-yard field goal he attempted this year, but right now, because it's early in the season, he's sitting at a really bad percentage because of that, since he's only attempted 5. So he's sitting at 60%, but that should change. He's also missed 1 extra point, so far not great for kicking for him, especially for how good he's done in the past, but he'll likely get it together. It's because it's very low volume so far.
All right. Shall we move on? Do you want to talk about what's going on around the league, or do you want to talk about our picks for this week?
Let's talk about what's going around the league.
All right. You want to fill me in on what's going on with the Washington football team? Because some more stuff has been going on lately.
Yeah, obviously last podcast we talked about the emails, and we finished by saying at best they are negligent and ignorant, and they basically did it again. At best, they're negligent or ignorant and stupid, and I really doubt this. So what happened is about 2 days ago, they announced conveniently that they're going to retire Sean Taylor's number. This has been a long time in the making. It's a very weird thing to announce out of the blue at a very convenient time. I wonder why they would have done that. It was on short notice. They said, we're just going to do this. Like, they gave everyone like 5 days notice. And it's like, all right, well, maybe at least they plan with the family. And then Sean Taylor's little brother, who currently plays at Rice, I forget his first name, he found out 4 days ago, he said. He was asked a question about it. He said, I found out 4 days ago, about the same time everyone else did. So they're stupid. they are really tone deaf. They basically are protecting Dan Snyder for reasons unknown. And Washington is trying to literally cover the tracks by capitalizing on one of their best players that has died. That is messed up, man. Yeah, I guess you can argue that it's negligence or stupidity, but I really I struggle to doubt that this wasn't conveniently done. Sean Taylor has been known as a great for the Washington organization for a long time. This was overdue by a good amount of time. To choose to do it now on short notice and not tell his family, you're telling me that that's not to cover up your trail of the emails of the bad press? I can't believe that. I can't believe that. I refuse to believe that someone is that tone deaf. So I'm pissed about that. I'm not very happy about them capitalizing on a dead player that was really good for them. It doesn't make me feel good, but I already thought Dan Snyder was a POS, so
the time to retire his jersey would have been in 2007 when he passed, or a few years later. I mean, this is 14 years ago.
Yeah, it's capitalizing on someone's death to get bad press away from you. And I mean, it backfired. So, I mean, I guess good thing that people are able to read through into this, because everyone's giving them that understandably shit. Because as soon as everyone was giving them shit immediately, then they found out that the family had only found out 4 days ago, and they're like, well, yeah, so you made it obvious. Like, you didn't tell anyone. Very, very stupid. Just absolutely. I beg of the NFL to release those emails again.
You want to get more mad?
Yeah.
Posted at 8:45 p.m. by Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio. The headline reads, NFL claims that no other team employees were implicated by WFT emails. Was John Gruden the outlier, or were his comments a reflection of the manner in which people communicate in the NFL? The NFL believes it's the former, and the NFL presumably would appreciate it if we take their word for it, even if no one is willing to attach their name to it. Associated Press reports that the league did not identify other areas and other individuals it has to contact at club leadership or league leadership levels based on the emails generated by the Washington football team investigation. So that's just to sum it up.
This has to indict like 20 people. Because now the NFL can't. The NFL is saying, dude, trust us. The NFL now, if they release it and are determined to be liars, are going to look worse. So they're never going to release it anymore because they said, dude, trust us. There's nothing else wrong in here. When there's and the only reason I could see for them protecting it, which I don't know why they would just let...
They just want John Gruden to be the sacrificial lamb, make it go away.
They want John Gruden to be the sacrificial lamb because what that tells me is there's just a lot of people that are going to be indicted of things that are bad. There's going to be... It might be more league spread. And I
almost
this is
assuredly.
stupid. Yeah, they're scared because if it gets released, there's going to be like 20 or 30 people on this list from across different organizations that this guy said racism, this guy said homophobia, this guy beats women and writes it in his email. This guy and they're scared of that. Like, just let it happen. John Gruden deserved what he got, but literally so does everyone that the NFL is protecting right now. I have no trust in them that, oh yeah, no one else. So when John Gruden got sent those emails, no one replied. They all were just like, damn, bro, John Gruden, that's kind of racist. You probably shouldn't say that.
Let's never speak of it again.
Yeah, let's never speak of it again. Bullshit. He felt comfortable to send those emails to someone, and you're telling me that no one responded back? NFL is being really shitty about this. Makes me mad.
It's nice to see people like Trey Wingo saying, like, sure, doubt it.
Yeah. Just absolutely stupid. Absolutely stupid that they're protecting all these people. Like, and if they're Steelers, it doesn't change my opinion if there's Steelers brass or people involved. Like, if you're a piece of shit, you deserve to be outed. It's pretty simple. Like, my opinion wouldn't change if it came out that, like, I don't know, Mike Tomlin, I can't say racist stuff, but I don't know, was homophobic. Like, all right.
It would certainly be shocking, but are we not trying to make the world a better place here? I mean, I'm not a social justice warrior by any means, but I find it incredibly hard to believe that John Gruden's the only one that did something wrong here, especially considering something that was initially opened up for investigation that had nothing to do with him.
Yeah. Now it just feels... I think them doing that was probably the bigger mistake, because then it just opened up everyone questioning what else was in there, because this was all about Dan Snyder, and then it was made about someone else. So...
And why are they trying... I guess they just don't want that situation like with the with the Panthers and like with the LA Clippers back in the day about having to sell the team. I don't know. I know it's a black eye, but isn't the idea to move forward from stuff like that? Yeah,
you take a black eye, you heal up. It happens. You learn.
Disgusting, frankly.
Yeah. Other news, apart from Washington football team and the NFL being a joke, following Thursday's game, the Eagles have traded Zach Ertz, the Arizona Cardinals, for cornerback Tay Gowan, who I believe was at UCF. He was a guy with like personality issues, but was a really good player. And then they also sent a 2022 fifth for Zach Ertz.
You are correct. UCF.
Yeah. Ertz was a captain in his final game yesterday or Thursday night. They knew he was going to be traded. It basically came out in the first hour that of the Eagles game that this is believed to be his final game with the Eagles. He was seen to be emotional in the locker room because, again, he knew that this was his final game. The Eagles risked playing him and made him a captain for his final time because it was sad. They didn't, after everything was solved. I don't think he actually wanted to leave anymore, but he's going to the Cardinals. It's a good spot for him. Kyler Murray was using Max Williams a lot before he got hurt. When Max Williams hurt for this and out for the season, Zach Ertz made a lot of sense. He's still a really good player. So I think it's a good move for both teams.
Here's something else regarding the Jeff Pash email situation, which is related to it. I don't know if you've heard anything about Jeff Pash. This is the first I've heard of him.
No, I heard Adam Schefter had some stuff in there too.
NFL General Counsel Jeff Pash, who had multiple emails to former Washington President Bruce Allen, was leaked to multiple outlets on Thursday. What is this? reveals close relationship with Jeff Pash. While the exchange contained none of the sexist, racist, transphobic, and or homophobic content found in John Gruden's emails, the Allen Pash interactions depict a relationship that a higher-level league executive should not have with an executive of any specific team. For reasons inherently and entirely competitive, the league should, in theory, keep all teams no closer or farther than arm's length. What do you think about that?
Didn't he just resign?
I am not certain. I don't...
Someone just resigned, and I thought it was him. Yeah. Actually...
I have not seen anything. Of course, I don't know if the NFL is going to want to publicize something like that.
Someone just stepped down, and it was kind of a surprise. I thought I saw it was Pash. Huh. I don't know who I was seeing it. Someone stepped down, and people were talking about that it might have been a preemptive move because it was a surprise move. Not sure.
Hello?
Hello?
All right, sorry. I had to take care of something real quick.
No worries.
Shall we move on to our picks?
Yeah, we can move on to the picks.
All right. We have Dolphins at Jaguars in London at 9:30. So make sure you get your fantasy lineup set early this week with the Dolphins and Jaguars. Miami is a 3-point favorite in what is technically a road game for them. I like Jacksonville +3, and I actually like them to win this one straight up because, I don't know, Jacksonville in London, even though the last time they played there was 2 years ago, feels like a little different to me. I think they'll be able to come away with the win in this one. The Dolphins have been one of the biggest disappointments in the league after just missing out on the playoffs a year ago.
Yeah, I radiate the same energy about the Jaguars. The Jaguars in London are another breed, so I'm picking the Jaguars +3, and I also think they're going to win. Miami will have Tua. Tua is starting. I don't know if that's going to make a difference. He hasn't really shown much yet. Still young, still hasn't played a lot of games, so tons of time to show something, just hasn't quite broken out yet. But I just think that the Jaguars in London are a different beast, so yeah, Jaguars +3.
Still no Devontae Parker or Xavier Howard. Byron Jones is also questionable for that game.
Will Fuller's on IR as well, so tough.
For the Jaguars, Miles Jack is out, and so is Rashad Coward.
My man is vibing.
All right, let's move on to Packers at Bears. Green Bay is a 6-point favorite at home. It's Justin Fields' first trip to the frozen tundra, which probably won't be frozen this time of year. Oh, wait a minute. No, this is in Chicago. I take that back. So this is Aaron Rodgers' umpteenth time in the Windy City. How about that? So, I don't know. Is there any hope for Chicago to finally show that they've got a quarterback of their own? I feel like this is going to be a close game. Justin Fields has started to show some good plays as the quarterback right now, but their defense is what I'm mostly excited about. The Packers haven't really been setting the world on fire lately. They did beat the Steelers in somewhat unimpressive fashion. That felt more like the Steelers beating the Steelers. But, I don't know, the Packers feel like a team that should be able to win this game, but I think the Bears' defense is going to keep it close. No Kevin King in this one again for the Packers. The Bears have a bunch of injuries, but not many players out in this one. I do like the Bears to keep it close, but I'll take the Packers to win, so Bears cover.
I'm going to take Green Bay to cover here. I liked what I saw from Justin Fields last week, but then it slowed down. I was like, it's just meh again. Wanted to see more, but I think he could continue to come along and do well. I am a little bit worried about his knee injury. It's not overly serious because he doesn't have a tag for it, but I do still think that it could possibly limit him, even though he's just not on the injury report. I think that the team overall, Green Bay should be able to handle them, but I could see it being close. I'm still going to pick Green Bay to cover, though.
All right. In Detroit, the Lions host the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are 3.5-point favorites on the road. This was tough. I feel like the Lions are getting closer to winning a game, but the problem is they're losing players in the process. Frank Ragnow done for the year as the Bengals come to town. So I'm not super confident in it, but I live in hope that the Lions will be able to provide stiff competition in this one. What else? Deontay Smith is the only player ruled out of this game, a guard for the Cincinnati Bengals. I do think the Bengals will win, but I'd like the Lions to cover plus 3.5.
Yeah, I don't. The problem for me when picking this game was deciding how I felt about the Bengals, because the Bengals I didn't think were a good team. I still don't know if they're a good team. Like, I felt like they did a good job against the Packers, but the Packers were pretty cornerback depleted, and their defense isn't very good, and they got T. Higgins, but I can't punish them for having good players. But, like, I don't know. It just feels weird to consider the Bengals being even average. But with that being said, I'm going to pick the Bengals to cover. I need to learn more about the Bengals. I can't wait to see them against the Browns or the Ravens, because I have a better feeling about the Browns or Ravens. I know where the Browns or Ravens stand. Like, I know that they're solid teams. I don't know if I could consider the Bengals a solid team yet. But yeah, Bengals cover.
All right, let's move to what's probably the most surprising line of the week, and that is Indianapolis being a 10-point favorite at home to the Houston Texans. I don't know where this line came from. At the start of the year, I might have understood it, but the Colts have been quite bad this year. The Texans, outside of a game in Buffalo, which they had no chance in, have been pretty competitive. The Texans are only missing Laramie Tunsil in this game, which is a big loss, but they'll be without him. The Colts, on the other hand, you ready to hear who's out? They'll be missing starting tackle Braden Smith, edge rusher Kamoko Toure, safety Andrew Sendejo, kicker Rodrigo Blankenship, and running back Jordan Wilkins. I don't know. Like, I'm strongly considering the Texans winning this game, let alone plus 10, which I think is easy.
Yeah, I think the lines this week, I know I talked about it a lot and I joked about it, but I literally think it's because both quarterbacks threw for over 400 yards that they're being overvalued. Because just to fast forward a bit, I was shocked to see Baltimore was favored over the Chargers. Like, I thought Chargers would be favored by 1, but I didn't think Baltimore would be favored by 2.5. And seeing this line was ridiculous, especially compared to the line afterward. I felt like this was ridiculous. Like, okay, so it's two bad teams, right? So, like, the Texans at Colts, like, how are you gonna have one bad team that much better than another bad team? Like, that's how I view it. And the Colts are an injured bad team. I also have the Texans plus 10. I also think the Texans could win this game by, and you know, it could easily be like a 24-20 game. I don't really understand Vegas's or ESPN's line for this one. I don't really know where it came from. But yeah, especially. Oh,
I was going to say, I was only going to point out, just because the next game we're about to talk about is like what makes more sense for them to be flipped.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to come out next. Rams at Giants. So you know that the Colts are favored by 10 over the Texans. Two bad teams. The Rams are at the Giants, and the Giants are injured. Daniel Jones is playing. He is playing now. He wasn't originally expected to, but he's out of concussion protocol. They are without Saquon Barkley. They're getting Sterling Shepard back. Kenny Golladay is out. There's Kadarius Toney is questionable. So they're still not great, and I mean, so this should be an easy. Rams are favored by 10, right? Because we saw that a bad team is favored by 10. No, the Rams are favored by 9.5, not even reaching the 10-point mark, which I would have assumed that this was probably favored by 14, but yeah, I'm going to pick the Rams to cover, and this is my lock of the week. I don't understand the process between the Rams being only 9.5 favorites over a bad Giants team. Like, is there something I'm missing? Is Aaron Donald and Matt Stafford on the COVID list?
Aaron Donald was limited in practice this week.
Yeah, it's going to take... Honestly, I would still probably favor the Rams if Stafford and Donald didn't play. Not by 9.5, but
Daniel
it's still-
Jones is good to go, by the way. I don't know if you said that.
yeah, I did.
Kadarius
yeah,
Toney's still questionable.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick the Rams to cover, and this is my lock still.
You did mention Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald against the likes of Billy Price, Matt Skura. That's not good. I'll take the Rams. That's pretty easy. I won't go with the lock just because you did, but that would be a good pick for a lock. I'd be shocked if they didn't pull it out. Let's move on to the free-falling Kansas City Chiefs and the Washington football team. Two teams that have been massive disappointments this year. Washington is a 7-point dog at home to the Chiefs, and I've been picking against the Chiefs a lot, Austin. I've been railing on them pretty hard, and I think I've been fair with it. I also think that they'll be able to get it back on track in this one. This is a big prove-it game for both teams. Both of them have a lot that will go south with them if either of them lose this game. So it's not a must-win for either, just like we were talking about with Pittsburgh, but it's important. Both of these teams need a win bad. And on the Washington side, just after being activated from injured reserve, Curtis Samuel will be out of this game again. No Brandon Sheriff either. Oh, Chris Jones is out, by the way, for the Chiefs. I don't know if I mentioned that. So I'm going to take the Chiefs to cover this one, even though their defense can't stop a nosebleed. I just trust Mahomes more than I trust Taylor Heineke for obvious reasons, and frankly, both defenses have not played much different than each other right now. Henry Mondeau has the same amount of sacks as Chase Young.
Yo, that's lit. I didn't even realize that Chase Young only had 1 sack. That's awesome. But, yeah, I'm going to pick the Chiefs to cover here. If the Chiefs don't win this game, they're going to be in free fall mode. It's just going to be a really, really tough sledding for them. I mean, their entire division is on the up, besides actually the Raiders. The Raiders are not on the up. I guess the Broncos are coming down too. But, I mean, they're going to be competing with the Chargers. The Chargers are the team to beat in their division right now, and they already lost to them, so that puts them behind quite a few games. So losing a game like this against a team that has the same problems as you, that their defense couldn't stop a paper towel, they should be able to outpower their offense by a lot. So I'm picking the Chiefs to cover.
One of the underrated games of the week, the Minnesota Vikings at the Carolina Panthers. Two teams that kind of started the season in opposite directions, but are now appearing to head towards, closer to the mean, if you will. The Vikings and Panthers could end up with even records. Sam Darnold looking much more like the old Sam Darnold, and for the Vikings, only going to be missing Michael Pierce, one of their defensive tackles, going to be pretty good for them. On the other side, no Christian McCaffrey again for the Carolina Panthers. I like the Vikings in this one to cover a 2.5-point spread. I think they'll be able to win. And the Panthers, who looked like they could have roared out to a quick start, who did roar out to a quick start, I thought could have really nailed home that they were at least a decent team, but have really stumbled and I think could be in free fall mode pretty soon themselves.
Yeah, so with the Vikings, I think they've had a really tough beginning of the schedule. I think they're a little bit better, as you said. They're getting towards the mean. I mean, I just talked about how I thought the Bengals might be a good team. If we consider them a good team, the Vikings took them to overtime. They then lost on a fluke to the Cardinals because they missed a field goal, a shorter one. Otherwise, they would have won it. They whipped the Seahawks. They kept it close with a very good Browns team. I mean, it was 11-7 for a good amount of the game. I mean, the Browns finished 14-7, but the Vikings were very competitive in that one. They did sneak one past the Lions, so that one's tough, but, I mean, they might be a little bit better. They've kind of kept up with a lot of the teams that might be considered good, so I am also going to take the Vikings to cover. I'm putting this on blowout watch. I think the Vikings could possibly win, 35 to 14.
All right, probably the game of the week here. The 4-1 Chargers at the 4-1 Ravens. Mike Williams questionable. Nazir Adderley also questionable in this one. Sammy Watkins and Ronnie Stanley still out. Coming off that emotional high win against the Colts, The Ravens are currently 2.5-point favorites at home. I actually like them to win and cover in this one. I think it'll be a great game. The Chargers have a lot of trouble stopping the run in this one, and that's the Ravens' strength is running the ball. I think they'll be able to play to their strengths, and even though I think the Chargers will keep up for a long time, I do like the Ravens to win and cover in this one.
I'm going to pick the Chargers plus 2.5. I like what they got going on. I like that. I think that their offense can keep up with anyone's offense. So I'm going to pick them to win it out just like they did in Cleveland. It was a close game that neither team could stop anything. But I feel like it could go the same exact way. I trust... Guess who I don't trust as much as Justin Herbert? I do not trust Lamar Jackson to pass against 4 cornerbacks that are supposed to be starting. So
probably won't need to.
Maybe not, but we'll see. We'll see if the Chargers get a fast start. That's all it's going to take, and then you need Lamar Jackson to throw, and that could easily happen. So I'm picking the Chargers plus 2.5. Still don't. I totally understand Baltimore being picked to win. I don't really I still don't really get how Baltimore's favored in this game. I just don't see it.
All right. Let's move on to another one of the games of the week, the Cardinals and the Browns. The 5-0 Cardinals and the 3-2 Browns. The Browns would have to look at 3-3 after this week as a massive disappointment considering how talented that roster is. They're going to be without Nick Chubb in this one, and Kareem Hunt is also questionable in this one. So some problems there. And then on the other side, Rodney Hudson, the center for the Cardinals, one of the best pass-blocking centers in the league, is out in this one. So, the Cardinals have gotten a little lucky with their wins this year, but they've also shown why they are 5-0. The Browns may be a little disappointing. I understand why the Browns are 3.5-point favorites, but I'm going to take the Cardinals plus the points and to win outright here.
Yeah, this one I think made sense. This line, I feel like the Browns as a whole are a better team than their record says, and the Cardinals do have those question marks, as you pointed out. I will also be picking the Cardinals plus 3.5. I think they're, regardless of their struggles, even good teams keep it close to some teams, and such on and so forth. I think this is about where they collapsed last year, though. If I remember correctly, the Cardinals were like a really good team. They were 5-2, and then they finished 8-8. If I remember correctly, they really down the stretch just absolutely sucked. But so
they were 5-2 and 6-3.
5-2 and 6-3. Yeah. So I knew they were 5-2, and then they finished 8-8. So this is about time when they collapsed. So 2 weeks away. So could possibly happen again this season. But I actually, as I've pointed out several times, I'm a believer in this Cardinals team. Cardinals plus 3.5. Oh, right. And Zach Ertz is not eligible to play.
Oh, no, he played on Thursday, so definitely not okay to play.
Yeah.
I think the Players Union would have a problem if he was playing. A ton of injuries in the Broncos and Raiders game, but only a handful of designations and just one player declared out. That's Mike Ford for the Broncos. Two teams that started off the season really well, and both are plummeting, especially the Raiders. The Broncos just probably regressing to the mean. Denver -4 at home. Part of me really wants to pick the Raiders because you know how teams tend to come together after a coach gets let go, but I don't know. This feels different. Oh, we forgot to mention Cliff Kingsbury of the Cardinals is on the COVID list. He actually has COVID, so he won't be available for this one. I'm actually going to change my pick now that I realize that. So I'm going to take the Browns cover.
Yeah, it's tough to do it without a head coach, but hey, the Browns won a playoff game without a head coach, so.
That tells me more about the Steelers.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin got out-coached by a guy that wasn't there.
Heck yeah, baby. Let's go. Crazy.
Anyhow, back to this game. It's funny. Teams have a way of rallying around themselves when they're faced with adversity, like the coach being fired. And you've seen this happen a ton of times where a coach gets let go and they immediately win the next week. But this is different. I like the Broncos to cover here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to pick the Broncos to cover. I feel like the teams that do better after a coach leaves is like a team that has like an Urban Meyer or someone where it's like they're, or an Adam Gase, you know, like it's a different kind of coach. Like John Gruden in his tenure with the Raiders this time wasn't very good.
Still
but it
liked
wasn't,
as far as I understand.
Yeah, he was liked, and he still had won like some games. There was some hope for them. But yeah, no, and I picked the Broncos to cover.
Final 4 o'clock game, we have the Cowboys at Patriots. The Cowboys are 3-point favorites on the road. I'm kind of surprised that they're not bigger favorites. I mean, I just don't see how the Patriots are going to be able to hang with them. I mean, the Cowboys' offense is just far more talented, and the Patriots are going to be without Shaq Mason in this one. So I'm surprised this wasn't like 6. Give me the Cowboys easily.
Give me Dallas to cover. I don't even have anything else to say.
All right, into Monday Night Football, because obviously the Steelers are on Sunday Night Football. The Bills, coming off that big win over the Chiefs, now have to face the Tennessee Titans. No injury designations yet, obviously, because it's Friday and their final day of practice would be tomorrow. Tomorrow. So no injury designations yet, but Mario Addison hasn't been practicing for the Bills, and Derrick Henry hadn't practiced for the Titans. I believe that was just yesterday, though, so I believe he's expected to play.
For me, I really feel like this is a trap game. Like, I know the trap game stuff is overused, but I really feel like Titans plus 5.5. Like, I really have a feeling they're going to win. It's going to be a surprise win. Obviously, they barely eked out the Jets, so the Titans don't look good. They haven't really performed well. Ryan Tannehill has just gone back to Miami Tannehill at best. He's just really been not very good. And Julio Jones has been injured. A.J. Brown has been injured, but he's back. Derrick Henry has stayed the same. Derrick Henry runs over people. Honestly, this might be one of Derrick Henry's best years, which is crazy to say. Typically, what I expect for Derrick Henry is like 2 or 3 weeks where people like, is Derrick Henry done? He just has, and he just hasn't gotten warmed up yet, and then he just absolutely runs for 200 yards on the Texans once, and then never stops. So, but this year he kind of just got started after week 1. Like week 1 wasn't very good, but going from there, the entire Titans team was awful week 1. Going from there, he's been great. I back to the point at hand. I think that this is a trap game, and I'm picking the Titans plus 5.5, and I have a feeling they win.
Is Derrick Henry a Hall of Famer yet?
He's definitely getting there. I mean, in a passing league, for him doing what he's doing without having much receiving skill, which this year has been great. He's actually been a solid receiver. I feel like better than other years. He's I think so. Honestly, with all the records he has already and how well he's done in this stretch, I think he should be. I mean, comparing him to Tyrell Davis, right, in a more run-oriented time, he's got to basically have him in most stats, if not all. Tyrell Davis is a Hall of Famer.
I was going to say, let me get that for you. I think if he has another 2,000-yard season this year, which he should get, and maybe break the all-time single-season rushing lead, I think, he's at 6,500 right now, which places him 77th all-time, just ahead of Le'Veon Bell.
Nice.
Interesting. How much did he have? Hall of Famer. Tyrell Davis. I'm kind of curious. I also like the Titans plus the points in this one. I know that I do think the Bills are going to probably win this game, but I do think it'll be closer than people think. The Bills have been riding high, winning a lot of blowout games lately, but I do think that the Titans are going to offer good resistance. Now, I will point out that the whole injury thing with Julio Jones is something to monitor, but A.J. Brown came back. I think Tannehill's been playing better. They've had a lot of drops so far. So I do think it'll be close, but I do think Buffalo wins. So I'll take the Titans plus the points, but the Bills to win. Tyrell Davis had 7,607 yards.
So that's kind of the benchmark, because Davis was kind of sitting around waiting to get in, And I'm looking at their per game stats, and honestly, Davis did better than what I remembered. I mean, granted, when he was done, I was 4 years old, so I wasn't really into football until when I was about 12. So I don't remember Tyrell Davis, but in my mind, he didn't do as good on a per game basis. But look at he had
his dominant stretch. His dominant stretch was similar to Henry. That's where he got in because after their last Super Bowl in 1998, he only played in 15 more games? He didn't play much after that.
Yeah, so it's looking like it's going to take at least this year for Henry and probably a little bit more. His yards per attempt is better, but that doesn't always mean anything. Because,
Well, I think that, keep in mind that if Henry breaks the record this year, he'll have more rushing yards than Tyrell Davis.
This is true. Yeah,
he only has to play one more season to have played in as many seasons. He's already played in more games.
Yeah, so honestly, it probably does make Derrick Henry, if he keeps up the pace he's on, yeah, it probably does make him a Hall of Famer.
He's 27 right now. Even if he starts to fall off, he could legitimately still be playing well for the next 3 years. And that puts him, at this point, this is year 6, so he'll be approaching a 10-year career, which for a running back in this day and age should definitely be Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he could hit 10,000 yards. It's not out of the realm of possibilities for him to have 3 more good years to hit 10,000 yards. And that to me would automatically, he should make it into the Hall of Fame. Because
yeah, I agree 100%.
I wanted to see the all-time rush leaders by their yards. Yeah, Emmitt Smith at the top.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he wouldn't be top 25, but he'd be pretty dang close.
He should be able to get 10,000 rushing yards in the next few years.
Yeah.
Which puts him right around 30th. This year he legitimately should be able to climb up, past Tyrell Davis. He should be right around 8,000 for his career by the end of the year, I think.
Yeah, and that'd be good. So he'd be looking at the Stephen Davis, Freeman McNeil, Larry Csonka area. What a great fullback. What a great fullback name.
Larry Csonka. Let's get back to the Steelers and Seahawks. Circle back there. Talk about important matchups, bold predictions, final score, the whole kit and caboodle. How are you feeling about this one, Austin?
All right. So I'm actually going to give my final score prediction first because I always take the X factors and stuff before you do, and I want to give you a chance to pick yours first. So
thank you.
I will give you some time to think about it, but I'm going to go over my final score prediction first, as I said. So for the score prediction, I'm going to have the Steelers winning 24-20 in a close game. The Steelers are favored by 5 points in this game, so that would put the Seahawks at plus the 5 points. I think that this is a classic play down to them game. I think the Seahawks, as I pointed out, I think the Seahawks are thinking the same thing the Steelers are thinking. Well, we're not very good at this, so we're going to be able to take advantage and we're going to be good. And I think both teams are going to try and do that, and it's just not going to work out. I still think the Steelers are going to edge them out. I think overall the Steelers have the more talented team. Steelers have the better defense. The offenses are close enough with Russell Wilson not being there, so I think that that should help as well. So overall, I have the Steelers winning 24-20. Close game. Might come down to the wire. Might be like 20-17. One final drive brings them up to 24-20, and the Seahawks don't have enough time to make it back down the field to win it. So that's it for me. Do you want to take over and go over everything you have, or I could start going over my X factors if you need me to?
Keep going. Just go for it if you want.
All right. Yeah, no, I could do that. So as for my X factors, what I think is important in this game on both offense and defense. On defense, I think it's going to be just dropping back into coverage, doing a good job there. And I think who I'm going to pick because of that is going to be Joe Hayden. I like his chances. He's going up against some really tough wide receivers. Him and James Pierre and Cameron Sutton are going to have they're going to have like the hardest time on defense, I believe. So you could basically say on defense, for me, the X factor is the cornerback room, but I'm going to single out Joe Hayden because he's kind of the mismatch with the speed. So I think that him being there and doing well is going to be an X factor for this team because it doesn't matter which one he's matched on; they're both fast. As for the offense, like that is a little bit tougher. I know I pointed out Pat Freiermuth as having a good game, but I feel like he's been an X factor several weeks already, so I don't want to pick him again. There's not really much else I'm worried about, so
go with Deontay Johnson because he should be able to get open a ton.
Did you pick Chase Claypool last week as your X factor on offense?
We should really check this stuff beforehand, shouldn't we?
Yeah. Oh, Anyway, I'm going to pick James Washington because he's been thrust into a starting role, and I like that. I like his chances of doing something against their cornerback three because he's going to be showing out for other teams. He gets almost a full season with the extra game to show that, hey, I want a big contract or I want a decent contract. He shouldn't get a big one unless he performs super well in this role. But this is going to be his audition. It's going to be his audition either to return to the Steelers, which I think is unlikely at this point. But it starts this game, and I think that this could be a good game for him to take advantage of because, as we pointed out, Seahawks defense isn't very good. So he is my offensive. So as for my bold predictions, I'm going to have Joe Hayden finishing with not one, not two, but with 3 picks as Geno Smith struggles in his first game starting in quite a while. So that's my first one. As for James Washington, I'm trying to think of what would be an impressive line for a wide receiver 3 going against a really bad defense.
Hey, I remember what a wide receiver 3 did in Seattle 6 years ago.
Marcus Wheaton, my man, 210 yards. James Washington, 210 yards or more.
There you go. That's the beauty of this combination we got here.
Yeah, that was an impressive game from Marcus Wheaton, yeah. So I'm literally going to make that my bold predictions that James Washington gets 210 yards or more receiving. And, so that's basically everything. I don't think I'm going to do a third bold prediction today. I feel pretty confident with my 2. Okay, so give me everything.
He had 201 yards, by the way, in that game.
I thought it... Okay, I'm switching it to 201. I had a bit of dyslexia kick in there. I moved the 1 and the 0.
He caught 9 of 13 targets for 201. Never had a 100-yard receiving game in his career, but did have a 200-yard receiving game.
Nice.
I tell you, that second half of the 2015 season is the most dangerous passing attack I've ever seen this team have. With those 3 receivers and Heath Miller. And, Lev Bell was injured, but D'Angelo Williams was awesome, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, now back to my end. I think the 2 guys I have circled this week, they're a bit easy to circle, but Najee Harris, and not for the main reason of running the ball. I'm more interested in him as a pass blocker, a personal protector for Ben Roethlisberger. Jamal Adams is one of the best blitzing players in the league, certainly the best blitzing defensive back in the league. They should be unleashing him early and often because they have not been able to succeed on defense with him in coverage this year. And I think it's going to be important for him to block well, and whenever Bobby Wagner does blitz too, Harris needs to be up to the task. Being in pass protection this year has been a bit of a mixed bag for him. As Austin accurately pointed out, he is not as good as some thought coming out when it came to pass pro. So there are still growing pains to be had. You're welcome.
Yes, there is.
Elsewhere, on defense, I'm circling Minka Fitzpatrick. He had a really bad play that led to a 49-yard run from Javonte Williams last week. He's had a pretty disappointing season by his standards this year. This is a perfect game for him to get things back on track, take advantage of a bad quarterback in Geno Smith, and make him pay. So he's the guy I'm circling on defense, and I have him picking up 2 interceptions and a forced fumble, being a part of 3 turnovers in this game. And I have Jamal Adams finishing with 0 sacks and giving up 100 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. And I have my ultimate big prediction, Ben Roethlisberger, passing for 4 touchdowns in this one after not having more than 2 in a single game, which he had last week. So those are my bold predictions. And overall, I could certainly be wrong about this, but Geno Smith playing in this game feels like a death sentence for the Seahawks. I think the Steelers should be able to play really efficiently on offense with the Seahawks having a horrible defense. And on the flip side, Geno Smith is a guy that I think can be had. The big concern is those deep shots to the likes of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Just don't get beat deep, keep a lid on it, and eventually you have to be able to learn from your mistakes. The Steelers have made plenty of those over the first 5 weeks of the season defensively in terms of being beat deep. I think this is a game where they start to show that they're learning from those mistakes. So I'd like the Steelers to win this one 31-18 in a game that stays close most of the time, but some late turnovers and touchdowns by the offense off of those lead to a cover for the Steelers in a 31-18 win. A bizarre kind of game, if you will. I'll have to check to see if that's scoreagami.
Oh, it might be. So, as you were going over your things, I went back to look. Do you remember how many pressures the Broncos had against the Steelers?
How many pressures in terms of what, PFF, ESPN? I'm not sure.
Just in general. Like
I know they had 2 quarterback hits and the sack fumble.
Damn. I almost hit a bold prediction because I remembered the 2 quarterback hits. I said only 2 pressures allowed by the Steelers the entire game. But anyway, yeah, I was going to pick Chase Claypool for my offensive X Factor, but you did have him as your offensive X Factor last week, so that was a good choice. I was just looking back. It's a good choice to change it. For me.
Yeah. Any final thoughts here?
No, I think we're good.
What are we saying if the Steelers win?
They beat up on a very depleted team.
Well, beyond that, but I mean going into the bye too.
You're looking as good as you can after being 1-3.
So you're still not feeling very optimistic.
No, the Broncos game was a little bit more telling than I thought it would be because Drew Lock played, and then Cameron Sutton played, but no, I don't believe in the consistency going forward.
And if they lose?
Hellfire will rain from above. It would be
fire sale.
Tough loss. Yeah, fire sale. Hit up the Buccaneers. They need a cornerback. We'll give them Ahkello Witherspoon and Joe Hayden as a package deal for a 2nd and a 5th round pick. Thank you.
And you can even have Eric Ebron for free.
Yeah, we'll throw in Ebron for free. He might be better than O.J. Howard.
And that note, I think we're good to go then. We'll wrap this one up.
Sounds good to me.
Alrighty. If you have any questions about the show, as you know, you can always email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com. And you can also visit our podcast, watch or listen to our episodes on YouTube under the name Stronger Than Steel Podcast. And you can check out our new home on Anchor at anchor.fm/strongerthansteel. Until next time, enjoy the Steeler game on Sunday. Austin, thank you for joining me as always, and thank you for listening to today's show. We always appreciate the listenership and the feedback. Until next time, thank you, as always, for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with Austin and John. Take care.
Enjoy the game.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.